Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Little Talk. My name is Daniel with PopCultX, and today I am joined by a stunt performer, actress, all-around badass, Gelsey Laurie. Thanks for taking some time today, Gelsey, to talk with us.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
So you first caught my attention when I saw some videos that you were posting of you doing a bunch of hard high kicks in heels.
Yeah.
Now, is that something you do every day?
It is. I wake up, I put on, 6-inch heels, and I just kick people's butts. So it's my agenda. Is that not what your morning routine looks like?
Yeah, a little bit different, but I wouldn't mind, going kick someone's butt every now and then. I don't know if I could do it in heels, but
not a lot of people can. That's when I started doing that because I realized, there's a lot of people out there kicking via martial arts or stunt world. And I was like, God, how do I separate myself a little bit and just kind of do something unique, but also true to myself? And I was like, well, I am a female who very much enjoys dressing up. And I've got quite a good collection, if I may say so, of heels. So I was like, what if I, not only because it's who I am, start kicking heels, and then it kind of increases the difficulty level and balance. But it's also kind of true to what you see in Hollywood. I mean, a lot of these stunt performers, it's the women have to, run in heels, and because that's the wardrobe. And if they're doubling someone that they're Bond girl or whatever, who they are, and they're in stilettos, good luck. So I kind of was like, well, this is actually going to be beneficial, and I want to show people I'm able to do it. So it's kind of where that came from.
Right on. Yeah. So how did you end up in show business?
Oh gosh.
How did that come about?
I was born into it. Yeah, my mom owns a dance studio. So age of 2, I was in dance class, on stage, trained hardcore dance and really intense ballet for quite a few years in my childhood. So I was literally on stage every year of my life, and then my first job was actually Disneyland when I was 16. I worked in the parades.
Oh, okay.
Dancing.
Cool. That is really cool. Nice.
Yeah, very. And then I went off to New York, did a Broadway tour, worked on cruise ships. And through this, I kind of transitioned into a circus career, and trained for years as an aerialist.
Right on.
So for years, I worked as an aerialist. I was in the Beatles' Love show with Cirque du Soleil for 3 years in Vegas.
Oh, cool.
And then I left that to come be a stunt woman.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a crazy ride.
So either way, you're taking the lumps, right?
Yeah.
Either as an aerialist or as a stunt person.
That's what all my family's like. Why are you're going from that where good, you're stopping that to give your body a rest. They're like, and that's what you went to? It's like, God.
Yeah, I remember growing up, my family's next door neighbor mom owned a dance studio as well. So I remember having to they dragged me in somehow to what was it? We did a couple ballets. I think I was in the Nutcracker for one of the scenes, or
classic.
Peter and the Wolf or something like that. It was okay. It was fun. That sparked my love of the stage as well. I think maybe even at that young of an age, and getting into just being in front of a live audience.
There's an adrenaline rush.
Oh yeah,
and I'm clearly an adrenaline junkie. So
you don't say.
Yeah, maybe.
So what came first, though? You said you grew up as a dancer, classically trained. Was it more, did you love the martial arts first, or did you love performing first? And how did you put them together? I love together.
Performing, yeah.
Okay.
So it's always been performing. The martial arts came as once I decided I wanted to be a stunt woman, which was a few years back. Okay. I kind of got the inception seed planted years and years back. One of my first aerial teachers was Jane Fonda's stunt double.
Oh,
and
okay.
She was telling me about it, and I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. And it's kind of like, oh, that's a career option. Wow, that's so badass, and I want to do that. And so it was kind of there, but I was going on a circus career route and had some goals there and really wanted to be in Cirque du Soleil. And so I worked hard to do that, but kind of just was noticing that side of things. And I once I had gotten the show in Vegas, I knew I wanted to come to LA, always come back because I'm originally from California, to be in film and TV. I've always had such a passion for films ever since I was little. And once DVDs came out and there was behind the scenes, I mean, I would just kill them and watch everything. And the making of it, I was like, yes. And I always wanted to be an actress. And I still do in a sense, and carry that a lot with my performing. But I'm so physical and I love being so athletic and pushing my body to its extreme. So kind of once I realized that the marriage of those two would be a stunt performer in films, I was like, oh, this is groovy. I want to do that.
Right
And so once I realized that would be my next step, I was still in Vegas with the Beatles Love Show, but I started training martial arts kind of on the side with different people too, because I knew that was just a skill I didn't have. It definitely was easily adaptable from a ballet background.
Yeah.
I'm very aware of my body, and, clearly and choreography is a huge thing. And so it's like, I can keep choreography, but there was a transition. I mean, I can look at videos from a year ago or pre-COVID really. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's, and now it's just, there's a lot of technical stuff that, still it's dancers, we place our hips in a very different sense than martial artists are much more open. And it's just so ingrained in my body to be so turned out and hip down that getting that kind of more parallel hip up thing, that was my biggest challenge. But once everything kind of started clicking and I just put in the numbers and reps and hours, it was like, oh, cool. This is going well. So
that's pretty cool. I mean, I remember I also have a martial arts background coming from like a Taekwondo experience for many, many years. So I know what you mean about getting your body in the proper position. I remember taking a Wing Chun class recently and just having to do 1,000 kicks per leg in that 2-hour class. It just, killed me.
It's
so I can
brutal.
imagine. It is.
Yeah. It takes a lot out of you. I didn't even realize, like, during quarantine, I spent most of my time like kicking and fighting because there was just kind of nothing else to do. And I just wrote a plan, and I trained like an animal in a good way. I mean, I improved so much over quarantine, but I wouldn't realize like how tired I was. Like, why am I so tired? And I'd look at all my training videos. I was like, oh man, I must have done like hundreds of kicks today, and yesterday and the day before. And I'm like, wow, okay.
That explains it.
Yeah, it's just like everything is sore. And man, there's nothing like, if you haven't done it for a while, it's just, there's muscles that you don't use otherwise. So yeah, it's crazy. And even like you said, like the different styles of martial arts, like if you are trained in one and then you kind of try a class in a different one, yeah, there's gonna be similarities, but it's the little differences that'll push you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Use muscles you didn't realize you had.
Yeah. Especially
you feel it the next day.
Oh yeah.
So if you could create your dream role, what do you think that would look like? If there was like let's say a Marvel or MCU or DC character, or even now even go far like as Mortal Kombat character, that's making a resurgence. What would be that dream role for you?
I think about this a lot, and at the same time, I sometimes like don't know. It's my passion is always like action adventure. So as much as the super spy, like, don't get me wrong, like Atomic Blonde, like I'll kind of just like that movie was so good. And she was so cool in it. And then like the first one that came to mind is Kill Bill. Like basically, if I could have Uma Thurman's career in any role she did,
there you go.
Even from an acting standpoint, I'm like, please. But like that one is just so great. I mean, I obviously love like a strong female character, but I also like, a more like Indiana Jones, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Mummy. Like those are my, just as a passion.
I hear you. Yeah,
that's what I grew up with, and those kind of action adventure movies are my favorite. And so I would think that would be like what I would want to make, even more than a superhero movie. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, I totally get that. Fun. Those movies are very fun. I enjoy them, and
yeah. And there's so many. I mean, in Star Wars would be sick. I love Star Wars, so I take that job too. So whoever's listening to this, I'll take all the jobs. So
we need to get you into a Jackie Chan film because all their actors do all their own stunts. So
good. They're on another level though. Like they're his teams that he's worked with. It's just like what just they're insane. Yeah, it's incredible. He's incredible. Right. I cannot. Yeah.
You spoke a little bit about female-centered movies, and we know recently that The Black Widow came out, and it's an awesome movie. And you just said something that really just caught my mind. I was just watching it again last night, and you mentioned Uma Thurman and Kill Bill. Now, the first fight scene between the two sisters, at the beginning of the movie, I was thinking, wow, this is a lot like the fight scene in in Kill Bill.
In the
When
house.
they're in the kitchen, in the house.
Yes.
Exactly.
I was just thinking about that fight scene the other day because I was like, God, if I could like try to recreate a fight scene and film it, what would I be? And that was one of the first ones that came. I was like, gosh, if I could find the right set and things to destroy and like
Right.
that is such an epic fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there though, I guess, an aspect of that in the movie that I noticed that she seems to be, we're talking about Scarlett Johansson, seems to be falling a lot. And as a stunt performer, is that something that when you fall down and you have to take those lumps? I know a lot of it might be CGI. I'm not sure what percentage of it is there, but it didn't seem like it.
No, you're taking those falls.
You were taking those lumps. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for something like that?
Training. It's, you kind of know how to fall in a sense. I mean, at the end of the day, it still hurts. And there's certain falls that you kind of go, okay, I've only got a certain amount of these in me. And whoever the coordinator is will talk to his team and be like, okay, if they're like, this is a hard fall, let's get this in 5 takes. So you don't have to do it more than 5 times because I know this is like, the reality is that you're going to get bruised, cut, bleed, sore. You're going to get hurt. It's the pain is the game in this. Like, it just is. There are paddings. I mean, you're padded up to a degree.
Oh, okay. Okay. Wasn't
as much as the wardrobe will allow
for it. Right.
So this is where it is much more difficult for a female than a male because the costumes are a lot either non-existent, you're in a mini dress or you're in a tight bodysuit where they can't pad her up too much because Scarlett's stunt double is Heidi Moneymaker and she doubled her for all like the last 10 years. Every time she's Widow, it's always Heidi. And she's a huge idol and I look up to her in her career so much. She's an incredible woman. But they can't pad her up too much where now it looks like she's a football suit on, so when Widow goes to take the fall, you're like, what the, so it's kind of, so there are things like a lot of people, we have like stunt kits. And so in your bag, every job you take, you go prepared with your own padding. So it's like, you should have basics, knees, elbows. A lot of girls have hip inserts because we can't be too bulky. So there's little gel kind of inserts you can put on your hip bone. And it's just being so well trained in your body that, every time you fall, you can find the one tiny area that you padded and using that. Now, the types of falls that you saw and that you're going, ouch, and the lack of padding I'm talking about, it's still an impact and it's still a fall and your body's still taking it. So it's just kind of knowing how to properly take care of yourself while, it's kind of like watching NFL players just take fall after fall after. I mean, they take some crazy hits, but their bodies are so conditioned and they know how to fall. So it's kind of the same sense, but it's also, it's hard because you have to know how to fall and fall in a controlled way, but make it look not controlled and like it hurts. So there's also that.
I also think of it as like pro wrestling.
Yes.
Where, the outcome might be, maybe predetermined. I don't know, but they taking the falls. They're taking the hits and and they have to know their bodies as well.
They're stunt I mean, I look at wrestling as stunt performers. They're choreographed stunt fighting. And it's, even if someone says, that's all choreographed and, predetermined this, that, it's still a very hard skill to do. So I think there is a lot of respect in that. I actually submitted last year for the WWE. I was like, maybe this is the path of, so I never heard back from them, but I was like, maybe they want another femme blonde, and I don't know, but no, it was kind of a pandemic crisis. What am I doing with my life? But hey, who knows? Got to keep your doors open.
Why not?
But some falls, though, this is where movie magic can come in, and it just really depends. Like if someone's falling out of a high building or this and that, you can see a lot with if the camera cuts and if there's an edit, if it's a two. So that's when it might be the fall. And then initially they're falling into a giant mat and then they can get the fall a lot closer to the floor and look like they took the impact. Sometimes you'll get that. Sometimes it might be the stunt person does the big fall and then the blast make it look like the impact's done by the actor so that they can get the close up or it just, it really depends. But it hurts. It hurts.
Bottom line, it hurts.
A lot of ice, a lot of
Advil. So what motivates you in the morning to get up and want to do this, I guess?
Coffee. As I'm drinking right now. No, gosh, that's a really good question. just moving my career along, the success, the kind of visualizing myself on a huge film. Because I am newer to this since I came out to be a stunt woman literally like 5 months before the pandemic hit. Okay. So I kind of got stuck in this weird, I got into the union, did a small commercial, and, luckily got a live show recently, but it's just that hungry. I'm just naturally a very hungry person and very goal driven. So I'm very self-disciplined. So I don't need this huge, like, oh, I really need to have this big motivator. Like once I decide I want to do something, I wake up and I'm like, this is what I have to do. And that's what kept me going through the pandemic, is like just training so much. Cause I was like, this is what I have to do. And I have a very like spy mentality where I'm like, this is how, like all the characters that I look up to, I'm like, I relate to you.
That's cool. You're very focused, just laser focused, driven. Yeah, that's really cool. I wish I was like that.
I know I have a lot of friends that are like, I'm so jealous. They're like, you can self-motivate and work out every day and in your house. And I was like, hey, just do it. And they're like, I can't. I get it. I go through my phases, and that's where maybe like reading quotes, even though as cheesy as it sounds, sometimes helps. But I'm musically driven too. So if I have like a good playlist, I know what songs will rev me up. If I need to go on a run and I'm like, I hate my life right now, I don't want to run, I know what to put on to get me running. Like, so
So well, since you mentioned it, what is A, your favorite quote, and B, what kind of music would we find on Gelsey's playlist when she runs? Because I know it's on mine, but I want to know what's on yours. Gosh,
what's my favorite quote? I don't know. Better sore than sorry is one. I think Arnold said that. I love that.
I like that.
Yeah, better sore than sorry, and your decisions today determine your tomorrow. All that, just real cliche, but you know what?
It works. Yeah, that's true.
It works. And then there's some like good Disney's, I relate to a lot of Disney characters. I'm a big Disney fan.
Okay.
And like Hercules, that gets me going. And his like, I can go the distance. I'm like, oh, tear, and here I run. It's the stuff. And I think because that was so impactful for me when I was a child, and those are the movies that came out. Mulan came out when I was like, how old? It's like 7, 8. I don't remember what year that came out, but that was very, that was like one of my favorite movies. And so now I look back and I'm like, oh, it makes sense that these were the Disney films and these were the Disney women that I looked up to, as Meg, Mulan, not so much. I mean, I did love the princesses when I was younger, but I think the ones that really got me at the core were these really strong, independent women.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. I've got some Eminem,
Okay.
Lose Yourself is always. So what I ended up doing was I found a speed I run at, say at like a 170 beats per minute music speed. Cause I used to, speed run. And I was at 160, 170, 180 is like, I'll like push it. But so I Googled songs that are that beat. So the whole run, I can stay pretty consistent. So that's kind of where like American Woman by Lenny Kravitz has a great beat.
Nice.
But that one doesn't get me. Footloose, love that. That gets me going. Gone Daddy Gone was a remake by Gnarls Barkley, I love. And then I love two things. So I kind of like, there's a couple like harder Eminem. I have another treadmill list. It depends my mood. But then I was going to say, I love electro swing. It's like swing music, but like dance editioned up. Cause I'm also swing dance, and I love like 1940s. I do a lot of pinup modeling. And so that kind of gets me this like fun get going. And then I would say almost a year ago, I discovered like Armed Forces drill sergeant CD mixes, and it's like army drilling, and that keeps like to a good cadences. Beat. Yeah, and I have gone like my whole run just listening to an entire playlist of that, and I was like, wow, that actually like kind of like meditatively like keeps me focused, and then I feel like they're yelling like pain ain't no thing, whatever. They're trying to motivate their cadets. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm just like in my little boot camp. And
right.
Yeah, that works.
That's cool. That's a bit more motivating than say like, I think what I listened to last time on Furno was Hamilton, the soundtrack.
Hey, that's some good stuff right there. You have to like know what mood you're into. Like, that's another thing. Like I have a Disney playlist that I can run to. I have a classical run playlist. So
nice. Okay.
and I think growing up in ballet, the first time I ever felt the feeling of cardio and wanting to throw up was doing a run of a variation in a ballet of like, I'm going to die. And so it kind of like was my first introduction. And so I can kind of I don't know, there's something deep in me that will like give it that all to classical music because it was so ingrained in me to push hard to that. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
What would you say, if you weren't pursuing your stunt woman career or in the circus or as an actress or any of your creative pursuits, what kind of career would you think you'd be chasing?
You know what? I constantly think of that, and especially with any injuries I get, which I'm currently nursing one, there's always that like, take a step back. Am I doing the right thing? Is this the smartest thing? What if my physical abilities get taken away from me? Because I've also been very close to people that's happened, and it kind of shakes you. And I'm like, what would I do? Who am I in? I don't know. I'm going to leave it there because I just don't know what else to do. I've just always been like, entertainment in some way or another has been my life. And I know I'm capable of doing other things, but it's just kind of like, that's all I know how to do in a sense right now. And that's all I want to do.
So it's all you want to do right now.
It's all I want to do. It's not, like I said, I know I have the capability of figuring other things out. That's not every job I see. I'm like, I know if I put the time in, I could do that.
Right.
Gosh, yeah, I've thought about it a lot, and I can never come up with an answer.
That's
to be honest.
Fine.
Yeah,
no, that's great.
Like, what do I don't know. I don't want to be a wedding planner. That'd be terrible. See, I just sit and I'm like, I don't know. And when I was younger, I thought I wanted to be like, I went through my phases. I always wanted to be an actress. And I was like, a lawyer, and an actress. I want to be an archaeologist and an actress. I wanted to be an Egyptologist for a long time. I wanted to be.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's some cool stuff, but it was always back to, I think I just wanted to play those people. That's what I was like, aha.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah.
That's cool. So as an actress or someone in the performing world, how closely do you keep tabs on like pop culture or trends and stuff like that?
In and out. I'm very just whatever happens to brush by me and make an influence. You know, like to a degree, I guess it's kind of my responsibility to be up to date, because if I'm trying to be competitive, it's also a very competitive world, and know what is up and coming and what's relevant. You kind of have to like take it upon yourself to do that research. But I'm also like such an old soul. Like majority of my iTunes, you know, people are like, oh, you listen to older music, like what, early 90s hip hop? And I was like, I'm recording, like, I'm like, seriously? Or even I say classic rock and people are like, oh, the 80s or the 70s. And I'm like, no, I listen to like early 60s, but I listen to jump blues, which was what rock and roll was before rock and roll was birthed. Gotcha. And then I have recordings from like the 1920s on my iTunes. Like I go That's back. Cool. So I watch like Turner Classic Movies are my favorite, black and white movies, film noirs. Like that's my jam. So sometimes I get a little caught up in the past, and someone turns the radio on. I'm like, I've never heard this song. They're like, what? So it kind of, I go all over. It just depends like what phase I'm in.
That's cool. I've been watching a lot of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon.
Show.
Oh
so
my
great.
goodness. That is so great. But the music, it's one thing I haven't really touched on with anyone yet, is the music that they use within the show is just outstanding.
It
and
is.
You mentioned all the classic.
Yeah, I'm noticing that a lot now in shows, especially like the Amazon originals or is that a lot of series are really paying attention to their soundtracks. Which has always been a huge thing in movies and TV shows, but now more with TV series where I'm really noticing like, oh, wow, this is a good soundtrack. And it really affects how the show or movie is. I mean, it's all about the music, but when you have not just a score, but say bringing in, you know, different songs, especially for a time period piece, it's really, I'm loving how much focus is on it. And that whole show is so great though. And the wardrobe, I can go on for hours with hats. Like I have the biggest vintage hat collection. It's embarrassing. They just sit there, but I'm like, yeah, but I have them.
I have them. It came with a hat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I recently tweeted about this. My great grandfather immigrated into a Jewish immigrant into New York City in the 1914, something like that. So, and he lived there till he was in the 40s, I think. So when I see that show now, I think, wow, that could have been like what it was for him. So it like transports me there. And
you know what's really funny is I have the exact same family history as far as my dad's papa. So his mother's father, I believe, owned a dress shop, just like the what is it? Joel's father has that dress shop in New York, and same. They were. I don't know if that generation immigrated or the generation before was Jewish immigrants as well into New York and had a dress shop. And he was like, "Oh, this would have been like kind of like what Papa was operating." And it's very very close to like what you imagine family history. I can relate to that.
You mentioned recently that you are performing or performed at Disneyland. That's was your first job, and you currently work in and around that area. Is that correct still? Okay, that's great.
Yeah, I'm at I can say this, I'm at Avengers Campus.
Oh, cool.
Avengers Campus, and I am a stunt performer performing.
That is really cool. I haven't been there. Haven't been to Disneyland probably in like 5 or 6 years, so I haven't seen the Galaxy's Edge. Haven't seen
so good.
Yeah.
Galaxy's Edge is so cool. The only thing it's missing is and we discussed this at work, is like a soul, where people, like characters and performances, where the land is a lot more detailed at Galaxy's Edge, and is a lot, you walk in and you're just like my breath was taken away, and you're like, I am here, I'm there. I'm like everything. Right. Avengers Campus, I think, just for 2 reasons: space, it's not near as big just because that's the space they had, and also it's set in a more modern time. It's kind of today buildings, that where, any Star Wars is this mystical different world. So Galaxy, you kind of have
far away.
Exactly. But in Avengers Campus, I can tell you walk in and it is covered, crawling with superheroes. Spider-Man's flying high. The Dora Milaje are there. Doctor Strange comes out. The buildings. Oh, wow. Everyone is. There's always, Captain Marvel's out there. Captain America's always around. I mean, I feel like anytime you're there, if you see less than 5 superheroes, something's not right. It's it's crawling and it's really alive, and that was done.
That's really cool. And as a tie-in to the movie that we just spoke about, Black Widow, I know I've seen that they have her there and she's there. So I wonder though, with the movie coming out, I wonder how the reaction has been to, especially little girls. And I have 3 sisters, so I always thought to myself, how would girls or look up to this character when they see her come out, especially now with the movie being released?
It is really cool to see Black Widow come out and the reaction. Now you can tell the week leading up to the film release, there was this excitement from the audience. It's like they knew, and now you can tell more and more as the movie's been out for days on end, people's reactions are high because, Taskmaster comes out and fights a bit and wreaks havoc. So, there's a lot of cool things like that. But when I see Black Widow come out and fight, and then I can see the little girls' faces, you can just see the inspiration and how much they're looking up. And it's really cool because myself growing up at Disneyland as a kid, I grew up so close to it. So we went all the time, and, we had princesses to look up to. Not bashing the princesses. They do their thing, but they all get rescued. They're all going to live happily ever after. And a man comes to rescue them. And there's nothing wrong with that story. It's awesome. But when that's kind of the only story you're given, and that's who you're supposed to look up to and want to be like, you're kind of put into this category of, okay, I'm waiting for my Prince Charming and everything's going to be great. And I have to be pretty. And it's, and you just kind of la, 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 like you kind of just chill, like you just dream. All you got to do is dream, which I am also an advocate for. I think there's a lot to be said about that and setting big dreams. And that's a great story to be told to little kids. But for the first time, these little girls are seeing a strong, independent woman, and she gets kicked down a lot in this park. And I've seen her, she takes, she doesn't just come out and beat up the bad guys and hooray, hero. She's getting hit a lot and getting taken down and gets up, and sometimes barely gets up, and sometimes is struggling to regain herself and keeps going. And I think that is one of the most powerful things a young girl can see. And I see girls, with t-shirts with her on it, dressed up like her, yelling out for her Black Widow. And it's amazing. And I noticed that a lot too with Star Wars, with this new generation that came out. When I go to the park, I see a lot of little girls dressed like Rey. and it just
that's
melts.
cool
It
too. That's
melts
true.
my heart.
Yes.
Oh, and I love that, you know, it's with, now you have tons of Rays walking around dressed up, tons of little Black Widows walking around, and these girls want to be these women.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not all dressed up like Cinderella, Snow White, and, you know, which
right.
they're classics, but it's a really cool feeling, and I feel honored to witness it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool. And yeah, I agree with you 100%. Not everything you just said. And they are inspiration. And I'm so glad that my nieces now have someone to look up to that is not just someone waiting to be rescued, that they can go and make their own destiny, and they can go and just, you know, and even if they get knocked down, they have the knowledge that they have the power to get back up.
Yeah.
And reclaim
and to see
theirs.
it's not easy, to see the struggle and know, because that's life. I mean, it's hard, but you can power through, and it's really cool. And it's even, I was going to say this, or it was in the back of my mind with this whole movie coming out with Black Widow, and Black Widow as a whole in the character of the last 10 years, but specifically this movie and what you're kind of seeing in Hollywood is generally kind of hopefully turn over to is a woman empowered storyline and cast. But the thing that was so special about this film is that the stunt world is such a boys' world. It really is very much a man's world. It's driven by men. It just always has been. It used to be men would put on wigs to do the bigger stunts because they were like, oh, you guys can't do this. And there are some really, really, really strong, badass women that pushed through those boundaries. And, you know, there's still boundaries to be pushed through, but I'm so thankful for the women that came before me and everyone in my field to allow us to move forward and prove that, you know, we can do it and that we get that opportunity. But with a movie like this, that's so female driven. And so the whole stunt team is going to be very heavily, you know, of course there's going to be guys on the team and any movie has that, but it's so female heavy. And it just really, it's a big movement for women in stunts and for women in Hollywood and in life, you know, but it was really cool to see that and kind of see the press around that.
I agree completely. So where can people find you if they wanted to follow you, you know, digitally stalk you, I guess? You
can stalk me on Instagram. No, it's such a weird thing. We just accept it as normal now. But if you really think about the whole social media thing, it's just bizarre. I never get over it. I agree. But I guess, you know, there's pros and cons. It is at Gelsey Laurie. So it's just my name straight through.
Right on. We'll have it linked in our website, and I think that's all we have time for today. So thank you very much again for taking some time to talk to us about, I guess, your thoughts are, your vision, how you see things, and what you get to witness. And we appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me.